Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the dimly lit kitchen, a mysterious parcel awaited, its allure irresistible to the expectant recipient. Charlie, nerves tingling with anticipation, stood before the unassuming package, a contrast to their bated breath and trembling hands. The sender's identity was masked, suggesting a deliberate anonymity, adding to the enigma. As Charlie gingerly tore open the parcel, the contents, until now elusive, were finally revealed. The carefully curated selection included an eyeliner, its design promising an immaculate smudge-free line, a liquid liner, boasting a precision tip for artistic strokes, and a remover purporting to dissolve even the most stubborn of waterproof makeup. Foundation in a shade that had taken hours to guess at. Mascara, concealer, a small palette of neutral eyeshadows. Charlie carried his treasures to the bathroom, locking the door behind him even though he lived alone. The mirror reflected his nervous expression. Angular jaw, slight stubble, brown hair cut in a simple style that required minimal maintenance. Nothing remarkable, just another 32-year-old software developer whose colleagues would describe as that quiet guy who brings donuts on Fridays. Okay, he muttered, arranging the products on the counter. How hard can this be? An hour later, Charlie stared in dismay at his reflection. One eye had a wobbly line that extended too far past his outer corner. The other eye featured a smudged mess that made him look like he'd been punched. Both eyes watered from his repeated attempts to wipe away his mistakes and start over.
This is impossible,
he groaned, reaching for the makeup remover. The directions had seemed straightforward in theory. Draw a line along the lashes. Extend slightly at the outer corner for a classic look. But his hands shook too much, and the anatomy of his eyelid seemed to work against him at every turn. Charlie dabbed at his eyes with the remover, wincing at the sting. He'd have to try again another day. This wasn't working. Over the next week, Charlie made 3 more attempts, each ending in frustration. The makeup sat in a locked drawer in his bathroom, only emerging after he returned from work. Each night, he would try again, and each night he failed to create anything resembling the elegant lines he'd seen in photos. During his lunch break on Friday, Charlie hunched over his phone in the corner of the break room, careful to angle the screen away from potential onlookers. Searching eyeliner tips brought millions of results, but none seemed to address his specific challenges. Then a suggested video caught his eye. Eyeliner tips for male facial structure. Charlie glanced around nervously before tapping on it. A polished presenter appeared, speaking confidently. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're continuing our series on makeup techniques specifically designed for male facial structures. Many tutorials assume feminine features, but today I'll show you how to work with the unique challenges of hooded or deeper set eyes, stronger brow bones, and different skin textures. Charlie's pulse quickened. This was exactly what he needed. That evening, Charlie sat cross-legged on his bed, laptop open, following along with the tutorial. The presenter demonstrated techniques that actually accounted for the differences in Charlie's face compared to most makeup models. The key is to work with your natural structure, not against it, the presenter explained. If your eyes are deep set, tight lining becomes your best friend. For hooded eyes, you'll want to create your line with your eyes open, not closed. Charlie followed along, trying the techniques with his pencil liner. The results were still messy, but marginally better than his previous attempts. The channel had dozens of videos specifically addressing makeup for male facial structures. Charlie subscribed immediately, creating a separate account to do so. Over the weekend, He binge-watched the entire Eyeliner series, taking notes in a small black notebook. Monday evening, Charlie ordered additional supplies based on the presenter's recommendations. A felt-tip liquid liner for beginners, a magnifying mirror, eye primer to help products stay in place, an angled brush for precision. When the new products arrived on Thursday, Charlie was prepared. He set up his bathroom counter like a workshop, placing his laptop nearby to stream the tutorial. He followed each step methodically, applying primer, then using the pencil to create a blueprint before going over it with the felt tip liner. The result was not terrible. Not good, certainly, but recognizable as intentional makeup rather than an accident. Charlie smiled at his reflection. Progress. Over the next few weeks, Charlie developed a routine. Every evening after dinner, he would practice for at least 30 minutes. He worked through the beginner tutorials, then intermediate ones. He learned about different styles, subtle daytime looks, dramatic wings, smoky effects. He discovered that forest green liner made his hazel eyes look more intense. Black created a classic look that paired well with red lipstick. Brown was subtle enough for a natural effect. His hands grew steadier. His confidence grew. One night, after successfully creating a perfect winged liner on both eyes, a feat that had once seemed impossible, Charlie sat back and studied his reflection. The makeup transformed his face in subtle ways, accentuating features he'd never appreciated before. "Who are you?" he whispered to his reflection. The name came to him without conscious thought. Delilah. Charlie began expanding his practice beyond just eyeliner. He learned contouring techniques to soften his jawline. He practiced applying foundation to cover the shadow of facial hair. He shaped his eyebrows to frame his eyes more elegantly. And then, in a moment of daring, he ordered a wig. Medium length, brown hair styled in loose waves. When it arrived, Charlie spent an hour just learning how to put it on correctly, adjusting it until it looked natural. The first time he saw his complete transformation, eyeliner, foundation, contour, lipstick, and the brown wig, Charlie didn't recognize himself. A woman stared back from the mirror, beautiful in a way he hadn't anticipated. "Hello, Delilah," he whispered. Something shifted in that moment. This wasn't just practice anymore. This wasn't just curiosity. This was something more profound. The red dress arrived next. Charlie had measured himself carefully, selecting a style that would create the illusion of curves where there were none. He paired it with black tights and simple black flats. He added a delicate silver necklace and matching bracelet. The first time Delilah emerged fully, makeup perfect, brown hair styled, red dress fitting just right, Charlie felt a completeness he'd never experienced before. But Delilah only existed within the walls of his apartment. For months, that was enough. Charlie would come home from work, transform into Delilah, and spend the evening as her, reading, watching movies, cooking dinner. Being Delilah felt right in a way that being Charlie never had. Then, one night, while browsing makeup forums on his Delilah account, he discovered a post about a local cross-dressing support group. They met monthly at a small cafe that closed to the public for their meetings, ensuring privacy and safety. Charlie stared at the information for days, returning to it each evening. The thought of stepping outside as Delilah terrified him. But the thought of meeting others who might understand was compelling. After a week of deliberation, Charlie sent an email to the contact person. The response came quickly. "We'd be delighted to welcome you to our next meeting. First-timers are always nervous, but I promise you'll find only acceptance here." The night of the meeting, Charlie nearly backed out a dozen times. He spent 3 hours getting ready, redoing his eyeliner twice when his nervous hands ruined his work. The red dress hugged his carefully padded figure. The brown wig was styled perfectly. Black accessories completed the look. "You can do this," Charlie told his reflection. But it was Delilah who stared back, confident and beautiful. The drive to the cafe was nerve-wracking. Charlie parked 3 blocks away, unwilling to exit the car where someone might see. He sat there for 20 minutes, engine off, gathering courage. Finally, he stepped out. The click of his modest heels on the pavement sounded impossibly loud. He walked quickly, eyes down, heart pounding. When he reached the cafe, he hesitated at the door. A small sign announced, "Closed for private event." A gentle hand touched his arm. Charlie jumped. "First time?" asked a kind voice. Charlie turned to see a tall woman with elegant makeup and a stylish blue dress. Her smile was understanding. "Yes," Charlie whispered, his voice higher than normal, practiced in his bathroom, but never tested in public before. "I'm Patricia. I remember my first meeting. Couldn't breathe, thought I might pass out right on the doorstep." She squeezed his arm. Everyone inside felt exactly the same way their first time. "Come on, I'll walk in with you." The interior was warm and welcoming. About 15 people were scattered around tables, chatting comfortably. Some clearly identified as women, some presented more ambiguously, but all welcomed Charlie with smiles and introductions. "Everyone, this is..." Patricia paused, looking at Charlie expectantly. "Delilah," she said, her voice growing more confident. "I'm Delilah." Throughout the evening, Delilah listened to stories from people at various stages of their journeys. Some, like her, were just beginning to explore their identities. Others had been living fully as their authentic selves for years. Patricia introduced her to makeup techniques she hadn't discovered yet. Another member complimented her eyeliner and asked what brand she used. Someone else offered fashion advice for her body type. By the end of the night, Delilah had exchanged contact information with 3 new friends and promised to attend the next meeting. The drive home was entirely different from the drive there. Instead of fear, Delilah felt exhilaration. For the first time, she had been seen, truly seen, and accepted. Back in her apartment, Delilah didn't immediately remove her makeup or change clothes as she usually did. Instead, she sat on her couch, savoring the feeling of being herself. She took a photo, her first as Delilah, and studied it. Her eyeliner was perfect, extending in a slight wing that emphasized her eyes. Her brown hair framed her face softly. The red dress brightened her complexion. "This is me," she whispered. The next day at work, Charlie found it harder than ever to maintain his male persona. He felt like he was wearing a costume, the opposite of how he'd once felt about being Delilah. Now, Delilah felt like his true self, and Charlie was the disguise. That evening, Delilah created accounts on several online forums for the transgender community. She began researching beyond makeup, exploring the possibilities of transition. The monthly meetings became weekly coffee dates with Patricia and 2 other friends from the group. Delilah began staying in her true form longer, changing back to Charlie only for work and necessary errands. "Have you thought about going full-time?" Patricia asked one afternoon as they sat at their favorite cafe. Patricia had been living as a woman for 5 years and had become Delilah's mentor of sorts. Delilah stirred her coffee, considering. "I think about it constantly, but I'm afraid. My job, my family, it's terrifying." Patricia agreed. "I won't sugarcoat it, but living authentically, there's nothing like it." That night, Delilah made a decision. She wouldn't rush into anything, but she would begin taking steps, small ones at first. She began by telling her closest friend from college, someone who had moved across the country but whom she still trusted completely. The conversation was nerve-wracking, but ultimately affirming when her friend asked to see a photo of the real her. "You look beautiful," her friend said. "And happy. I've never seen you look so happy." Emboldened, Delilah began exploring opportunities at work. She discovered that her company had inclusive policies and even covered transition-related healthcare. She researched legal name changes and the process for updating identification. Step by step, Delilah prepared for the day when she would no longer need to be Charlie. 6 months after her first meeting with the support group, Delilah wore her red dress and sat across from her supervisor at a coffee shop away from the office. "I appreciate you meeting me outside work hours," she began, her perfectly lined eyes holding steady contact despite her nerves. "There's something important I need to discuss." Her supervisor listened without interruption as Delilah explained her intention to transition at work, including her name change and preferences for pronouns.
"Thank you for trusting me with this,"
her supervisor said when she finished. "We'll make this transition as smooth as possible for you. Our HR department has protocols in place, and I'll be there to support you every step of the way." The relief was overwhelming. Delilah had prepared for resistance, for awkward questions, for potential rejection. Instead, she found acceptance. The workplace transition plan was developed over the next few weeks. Emails would be sent to her department. Her email address and nameplate would be updated. Facilities would ensure she had appropriate restroom access. The night before her first day as Delilah at work, she stood before her mirror, practicing her eyeliner one final time. The skill that had once been so elusive was now second nature. With steady hands, she drew perfect lines on each eye, extending them into subtle wings that emphasized her natural beauty. "Tomorrow," she told her reflection, "is the first day of the rest of my life." Morning arrived with a mix of terror and excitement. Delilah dressed carefully in a professional black dress with red accents that echoed her signature look, but remained appropriate for the office. Her brown hair was styled in a sleek bob, and her makeup was flawless but understated. Walking into the office, as Delilah felt surreal. The first person to greet her was her supervisor, who met her in the lobby as planned.
"Ready?"
he asked, with an encouraging smile. Delilah nodded, her voice momentarily failing her. The day passed in a blur of introductions and adjustments. Some colleagues were awkward, some overcompensated with excessive enthusiasm, but most simply accepted the change with minimal fuss. By afternoon, Delilah felt herself relaxing into her new reality. As weeks passed, being Delilah at work became normal. The initial curiosity faded. Her skills and contributions remained what mattered most to her colleagues and clients. At a company function 3 months later, a new client asked how long she had been with the firm. 4 years, Delilah answered easily. "She's one of our most valuable team members," her supervisor added. "No explanations, no qualifications, just a simple truth." Later that evening, Delilah stood in the bathroom of the event venue, touching up her eyeliner. The woman at the sink beside her complimented her technique. "You make it look so easy," she said. "I've never mastered winged liner." Delilah smiled, remembering her own struggles. "It took a lot of practice. I could show you sometime, if you'd like." "Would you? That would be fantastic!" As they exchanged contact information, Delilah realized how far she had come. From struggling alone in her bathroom to offering tutorials to others. From hiding behind locked doors to living openly in her truth. The following weekend, Delilah met her new friend at a makeup store where they tested products and techniques. The woman was a quick learner, and by the end of their impromptu lesson, she had created a respectable winged liner. "You're a natural teacher," she told Delilah. "Have you ever thought about starting a channel like the ones you learned from? Paying it forward?" The idea took root immediately. That night, Delilah set up a channel of her own. Her first video was simple: eyeliner basics for beginners. She filmed herself explaining the techniques that had been so challenging for her, offering tips specific to different eye shapes and structures. She demonstrated with both black and forest green liner, showing how different colors could create different effects. Posting the video terrified her, but she reminded herself of how valuable those tutorials had been for her own journey. Within a week, the video had hundreds of views. Comments poured in, thanking her for her clear instructions and asking for more tutorials. Delilah began filming regularly, expanding beyond eyeliner to other makeup techniques. She never explicitly identified as transgender in her videos, but she occasionally referenced her unique journey and offered tips specifically for those with features similar to her own. The community that formed around her channel was supportive and eager for her expertise. 6 months into her new venture, Delilah received an email from a familiar address, the creator of the channel that had taught her eyeliner techniques for male facial structures. "Your tutorials are exceptional," the email read. "I'd love to collaborate on a video series about makeup for transition journeys." The collaboration was a success, bringing Delilah's channel to a wider audience and connecting her with others who were just beginning their own explorations. She remembered her own fear and isolation and was determined to ensure others had better support. 1 year to the day after Delilah first attended the cross-dressing support group, she returned, not as a nervous newcomer, but as a mentor. She brought makeup samples and offered mini tutorials to those who were interested. A young person approached her at the end of the evening, eyes downcast. "I've been watching your videos for months," they admitted. "They gave me the courage to come tonight. I didn't know it was possible to become myself." Delilah recognized the yearning in their voice. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Michael. But that's not who I am inside." "And who are you inside?" "Miranda, but I don't know how to be her yet." Delilah smiled, taking Miranda's hand. "Let me show you how to draw the perfect eyeliner. It's the first step of many, but it's a good place to begin." As she demonstrated the technique, Delilah reflected on her journey from Charlie to Delilah, from struggling with eyeliner to teaching others, from hiding in fear to living with pride. Her perfect wings extended past her eyes, accentuating not just her beauty, but her confidence, a confidence she now passed on to others beginning their own transformations. Each stroke of eyeliner had been a step on her path to becoming her true self. What had begun as a desire to master makeup had evolved into the mastery of her own identity. The red dress she wore now was just one of many in her wardrobe, but it remained her favorite, a reminder of her first steps as Delilah. "There," she said, finishing Miranda's eyeliner with a steady hand. "Now you can see yourself a little more clearly." Miranda looked in the mirror, eyes widening at the transformation. The simple makeup change highlighted something that had always been there, waiting to emerge. "Thank you," Miranda whispered. "Don't thank me," Delilah replied. "This is just the beginning of your story." Later that night, Delilah stood before her own mirror, applying her evening skincare routine. Her red dress hung in the closet among others in various colors and styles. Her brown hair was pushed back with a headband. Her face, free of makeup now, was still undeniably feminine, not because of cosmetics, but because of the confidence and authenticity that radiated from within. The black eyeliner sat on her counter, no longer a challenge, but a tool, one of many that had helped her become who she was always meant to be. Delilah smiled at her reflection, remembering the day she had first attempted that wobbly line. How far she had come since then, how much she had grown. The journey had never really been about makeup at all. It had been about finding herself, one careful line at a time. Tomorrow she would film a new tutorial. Tomorrow she would mentor another newcomer at the support group. Tomorrow she would continue living authentically as Delilah. But tonight, she simply appreciated the journey, from struggling with eyeliner to mastering her true identity. The cosmetic skill had been just the beginning, the first brushstroke of her real self-portrait. Delilah turned off the bathroom light and walked into her bedroom, where photographs documented her transformation. The earliest showed her first successful eyeliner application. The most recent captured her accepting an award for her volunteer work with transgender youth. What had begun with a small package of makeup delivered in plain brown wrapping had blossomed into a life lived in full color, with perfect eyeliner, a signature red dress, and the freedom to be genuinely, completely herself.
Thanks for watching my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!